Hello and welcome to ZipTied. Today we're adding chassis reinforcement, various brackets, and plumbing the entire brake and clutch system. This car is getting really close to driving on its own power, so let's get into it. I just got a delivery from Suncut Send, so it's time to get busy. I have brackets for a ton of things, but I'm starting with reinforcing the rear strut towers. I got tube adapters from McMaster-Carr that are designed to slide into a piece of 1-inch tube, and it'll go from the center of the roof to each strut tower. These two rods are made to be removable, so whenever I have to work on the engine, they can be unbolted and taken right out of the way.
In the engine bay, I lovingly zip-tied the expansion tanking to the chassis, but it looks bad at best, so it's time to give it a real bracket. Additionally, the two random hoses in the corner are supposed to go to my air oil separator I didn't install. Does it work? I don't know, but probably. Do people like to argue about them? Yes. Up front is a very similar story. I had a bracket laser cut to mount the tank I also zip tied to the chassis. I promised one day I will finally cut off the old ugly bracket, but it was full of water, so I have an excuse. I also need to extend the lower hose as well, but that's content for another day. The battery mount was a piece of metal resting between the chassis rails. This is no good because I set it on there crooked. Therefore, it must be replaced with a nice piece of laser cut steel. This is the reservoir for my brake and clutch master cylinders. It's getting mounted within my sight while I'm driving so I can be certain I have brake fluid before I go on track. Walls hurt to hit.
While in the neighborhood, I also added a bracket for the brake bias adjuster. Just don't be alarmed if it disappears in a couple shots. The pedal cluster has just been sitting there for a while, but it currently isn't even complete or connected to anything, so it's time for a change. These are all the parts to complete the pedal cluster, which includes a throttle pedal you would have thought I would have already put on, and 3 master cylinders, 1 for the clutch and 2 for the brakes front and rear. I'm starting with all of them being 3/4 of an inch bore because that's what my old car had and it's somewhere to start. With all the big parts in place, I can finally start on the brake lines. And there's lots of pieces from tube ends to T-fittings and braided lines. I also got a few straight sticks of stainless tube from McMaster-Carr so I don't have to bother with tube straighteners. The brake lines themselves are pretty easy to make. The hardest part is just remembering to put the fitting on before you flare it, because you will forget it at least once. Once the tube is deburred, you're ready to flare. The line is set as far out as the thickness of this little black tool and squeezed all the way down. The little tool is then removed and then the line is squeezed again. If you did it right, you will see the line folded over itself evenly all the way around the tube. Bending is also pretty easy because this stuff isn't super tough. In fact, it can be done by hand for slight bends. And on the second tube, I already forgot the fitting, so this is going well. A good little trick is you can hand bend a tight radius if you screw the line into a fitting. Just be sure it doesn't kink. This Subaru slave cylinder was already converted to an AN fitting, so it's getting an identical brake hose to all 4 wheels and the pedal box. That way if something happens, one spare line can replace anything on the car. Now that I have everything put together, I can finally install the brake bias valve and round off the brakes. This adjusts how much brake pressure is split between front and rear wheels. Until I secure the cable, it's just going to whip around wildly, but that comes after powder coat. This car is getting unbelievably close to driving. Once they are bled, the car will then have brakes and a clutch. So then all that's left is gear shift, throttle, and a couple odds and ends. Depending on how things shake out, that might be next time on ZipTied. So if you don't want to miss it, subscribe, do the thing. I will see you next time.
Do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams come true!